intuition is developed, according to the science, by exposure to high complexity, high stakes environments, right? So repeated exposure to highly complex, high feedback environments, basically where when you take an action, you find out the result of that action really quickly, right? There are consequences to your choices, and you learn from that rapid consequence. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Inside Conscience-Driven Leadership, a podcast where we are talking about the intersection of intuition and conscience and leadership and this kind of different style of leadership that we've been thinking about and talking about. I am joined by my amazing co-host, Julie Euber. Hi, Julie.
Hi there.
And I think today we're talking about what conscience is, right? Like, it's the natural first question.
I think so.
It's conscience-driven leadership. What do we mean by conscience?
Yeah.
And for me, I feel like we can't talk about conscience until we talk about intuition, because it's foundational to the model, to the definition of conscience, and to how this kind of leadership operates in the real world.
Great. I agree. I think intuition is an interesting word because I don't think everyone knows how they would define it, but everyone kind of has a feeling of what it means.
Yeah, and it's often this word that we talk about as like this soft skill. And as part of developing this model, I went into the research on intuition and how is it studied? How is it defined when we look at it in science? Because intuition is a real studyable thing. And the thing that I found is that intuition is defined as a rapid pattern recognition system that is basically your brain working faster than your conscious brain can keep up. Right.
Mm.
So it's based on real data. It's real thoughts. These thoughts and feelings are based on experience and data. It's just happening at a kind of faster than cognition speed.
Oh, that's fascinating. And, I do think that people think of it not only as a soft skill, but I think they sometimes gender it. Like when you think of intuition, it's often considered feminine when something like instinct is
Mhm.
considered masculine, though these are different things. So I am curious for this model, why why intuition over some of these other kind of words that also are kind of an internal pull that we have towards
Mm.
that question makes sense?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think they're different, right? I haven't studied instinct, but when I think about instinct, I think of that's I don't know, instincts are kind of raw or more primal or more basic, right? Like you have human instincts, you have animal instincts. Like the instinct is ultimately like an animal sort of thing. It's about the animalistic nature of us. We have instincts for food, for sex, for pleasure. Like they're different than intuition, which is based on this very real experience you've had. And it's funny that it's so gendered because when they study intuition, they study it in firefighters in the military. Like these like
Oh,
super masculine
fascinating.
professions. Well, and that's where you can study it, right? So intuition is developed, according to the science, by exposure to high complexity, high stakes environments, right? So repeated exposure to highly complex, high feedback environments, basically where when you take an action, you find out the result of that action really quickly, right? There are consequences to your choices, and you learn from that rapid consequence. And so through repeated exposure, you wind up, if you're a firefighter, you wind up having a sense of we need to do this thing now. And I can't tell you why, but
Mm.
you trust that in an experienced firefighter because they've been in this situation so many times, they've seen things happen. So they might not be able to slow down and tell you, well, the building's going to collapse in 5 minutes. But their rapid cognition is telling them that. It's not just a gut feeling, it's an informed gut feeling.
So would you say that intuition is how lived experience becomes knowledge?
Oh, I kind of like that.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
I think it does have to be a specific kind of lived experience, right? There has to be that high consequence. It has to be there. It's lived experience with high stakes. That's highly complex and high stakes. So like all lived experience doesn't, I think, inform intuition. It's
Mhm.
experience that feels dangerous, whether the danger is physical or relational or, there's a real risk somehow in what we're doing.
Fascinating. Okay. So does intuition what about when intuition steers you wrong, or does that happen, or, like, how does
Mm.
it play into this work?
I think when what feels like intuition is steering you wrong, that's actually a different thing that we should talk about later that I'm
Okay.
calling distortions, because I think there are ways your brain lies to you that feels like intuition, but is actually an inability to read the there's a threat to the situation, or there's a sense of urgency, or an unclear boundary. Like, there's other factors at play that make us second guess our intuition, or that we misread as intuition. So the thing that I've been really hypothesizing about, and I don't know that there's an actual study on this, but it like tracks if you look at the kind of two different sides of science, is that if so you develop intuition by this exposure to high complexity, high stakes environments.
Mhm.
But I think the conscience driven leader has developed intuition in adolescence when your brain is still developing. And so I think that when you develop intuition at a young age, like in adolescence, because you were exposed to highly complex, high stakes environments,
Mhm.
that intuition locks in at a different level than you can learn it in adulthood, much like many things, right? But your brain's still in development. So if you have that exposure at that early age, I think that's where conscience driven leaders come from. And that kind of leads into this like, one of the things that sets conscience driven leadership apart is that it's not for everybody. It's not a type of leadership that's designed to be plug and play or to work in every environment. It's actually the conscience driven leader is a kind of leader that I've encountered a bunch. You're one of them. I'm one of them. That this is who I work with. This is who I love to support and collaborate with. It's the kind of leader who is oriented toward changing systems so they serve people. And I think that early exposure to these highly complex systems where they learn their intuition locked in leads them to a calling to fix systems to help people because they want to create an opportunity to be successful. Maybe because that's not something that they felt like they had an opportunity to experience early. This is my working theory.
That is fascinating. So, do you have an example of how intuition has showed up in your life?
Oh, I mean, I think everything I do is based on it. Or this model is definitely like informed by it.
Yeah.
And in researching it, it was actually really interesting to kind of understand where my own intuition came from. Because right, so the way my intuition really works, the way I trust it the most, is I have really great bullshit detection. Right, like I
Yeah.
know when I know on shaking someone's hand, I need literally 10 or 15 seconds with a person, and my gut will tell me trustworthy or untrustworthy human. Right?
Fascinating.
And it took a
Yeah.
long time to learn to trust that, and every like, as I got older and older, every time I was like, "No, don't judge Hannah, like, don't listen to that, maybe they're wrong, give them a chance." Every time I did it, it bit me in the ass so badly that I finally was like, "No, I'm always listening to it," right? Like, and it every time I've listened to it, it has kinda worked out. So, in doing this research, I was talking to the robot a lot about this research, AI, ChatGPT, I call it the robot. It says it likes that. We'll believe it until the war comes. Um, but so I was talking to the robot about this and about my leadership because I my leadership is really unusual, right? Like like trying to talk about our backstories a little bit. I grew up in a circus. My parents started the circus with 65 horses when I was 8 years old, and I grew up performing in it starting when I was 11. And then when I was like 22 years old, I leapfrogged into management because it was my family business. And so, like many people in family businesses, I was kind of an early leader, but I was leading all these people that I had grown up with. And so, and nobody, we were a circus. We didn't know about consultants or leadership models or research or blah, blah, blah. We just made shit up as we went along. That is how the circus operates, is a, hefty dose of baling twine and duct tape to get everything happening. So I always oriented toward fixing systems, even though I had no real model for doing, right? And
Yeah.
most of the things I wanted to do were met with resistance from every side. Like it was like, what are you doing? Why are you trying to be all complicated? But I was always really successful at it. And so I was talking to the robot and I was like, understanding intuition and understanding the research I was like, but how did my intuition develop that early? Well, because I had this exposure to such unique people. And a circus with 65 horses, there are real consequences. You mess up, you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, and somebody gets hurt. Right? Like, it's kind of a miracle that we did like 500,000 shows and no one died, because horses are dangerous.
Mm.
So, and there were real relational consequences because I was a kid in a field of adults. I didn't have peers until I was like my own age, until I was 35. But also I think exposure to horses, and that many horses, informed it, because horses are highly intuitive, right? Like, they are prey animals, and so they respond to threat as something, they need to be intuitive about whether there's a tiger in the bushes. Not,
Mhm.
I know tiger is an exaggeration. Horses and tigers don't live in the same place, but wolves in the bushes, whatever. Something
Yeah.
wants to eat them. I'm curious what resonates for you about your adolescent experience for developing intuition.
Yeah. I grew up in a somewhat small town. I mean, the 3rd largest town in Indiana, thank you very much. So not tiny, but not a huge place,
Yeah,
and,
not a
uh
not a, like, metropolis.
and, both of my parents had moved there from other places, uh, and a smaller place, people are used to knowing the people they know, so there is this feeling from the beginning that we were outside a little bit.
Yeah.
Also growing up, my brother had autism, and so that also made our family a little bit different than others. We didn't I didn't really go to church consistently, and that was something that was important in my community that made us a little bit separate. And so I do think that at the very least I was aware of these things. So they did shape how I thought of myself, of other people in a variety of ways. But I think especially growing up as the big sister to my brother, that was a big piece of that.
Mhm.
And there were times when he was fixated on something, he felt we couldn't get him to do something, he was on the verge of that tantrum, and I was able to talk him down from it.
Yeah.
And I had to do that kind of thing well, I wanted to do that kind of thing from an early age. It's not that I had to, it's that my brother deserved to have a good life with good things in it, and sometimes that meant working through hard times. And
Mhm.
so modeling for other people, even adults, of how to interact with my brother that was appropriate, because not everyone had those experiences. And so I think being a fierce big sister had a big piece of that.
Yeah, well, and I imagine you had a really keen awareness of how everybody was responding to him.
Yes. Yeah. And
Like,
that
you're
a lot too.
directly relating with him, but you're aware of everybody in the room, and are they and basically threat assessing them as it related to him, right? Like,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
so
From kids to other adults to situations where his awareness of the space and what dangers might be there, might be limited, those things were in my mind.
and so they're always in your mind, right? Even when he's not having, tantrum or a reaction to something, you're always scanning for what could happen.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, for
so,
sure.
yeah. So, yeah, it's like programming into your brain that awareness of the environment ultimately.
Yeah, and the value of being that calm presence. Of knowing of being able to pick up the vibes in the room and knowing actually how important that is to what outcomes will be a part of that
Yeah.
situation. That calmness is something that I want to bring to spaces because I think it creates more space for more people to interact in ways that are comfortable to them, and they're gonna be more honest and authentic in that kind of space.
Yeah, I feel like that's I'm having a light bulb moment of, like, that that ability to absorb relational impact or energetic impact without passing it on. And I think that's probably something that we that our kind of leader has in common as well, and maybe is learned in the same time and space, is the ability to, like, take on, right? A lot of people, an emotional impact or an energetic impact in the room happens to them. Your brother was probably a great example of this. Energy hit him, and that energy got amplified and pushed on in some cases. Or even if
Mhm.
it's not amplified, right? Like hurt people hurt people. You have a bad day, you lash out at somebody. When you grow up in an environment where like that's just like it's just like it's not an option, right? Like there's somebody else's emotions that are bigger, more important, more centered. We learn how to contain and transform that energy into calming the space.
Yeah, yeah, I think so, because I think anxiety can feel like a couple different metaphors, and
Mhm.
by making it a metaphor and a real thing, it makes it easier to decide how it's going to affect you, I think. So, anxiety can be a rubber bouncy ball that is just bouncing on the insides of you, just everywhere, just in your head, in your gut, like, you just feel it everywhere, it's buzzing inside you. But actually, I watched a video of Bill Hader talking about his anxiety, and he talked about visualizing his anxiety as a little critter that's sitting on his shoulder, that's
Mm.
the ride with him. It was here with him, but it wasn't him. And
Mm.
I think that I recognized that I was my best and I was able to work through situations the way I wanted to when I saw it as this external thing that was just going to join me in this. It was another little critter on my journey
Yeah.
that I was going to, lead through whatever we were doing.
I
Um,
really like that. I'm gonna steal that one. That's a great visualization, right? Because any way to think of what's happening to us as not who we are, but something that's happening to us. It's one of the things I love in Spanish. I love, I live in Spain now. I'm learning Spanish, and you don't say I am anxious. You say I have anxiety. Like you don't say
Mhm.
I am sick. I have sick. Like it's a thing that's happening to me. It's
Mm,
not who I am. And I think in English, and especially in the U.S., we like to pathologize and like it's not the thing that's happening is who you are, and it's a flaw in who you are to experience these things that are very normal. Anyway,
yeah, you're an anxious person. Y Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, I'm curious, like, what's the line that you draw between anxiety and intuition?
I think those are distortions. I think anxiety is a really great example of how our intuition, how our experience gets distorted and it feels like intuition. So the next piece of intuition is that intuition really only tells us two things.
Mm,
Intuition says stop or go. So for me, it's with, my bullshit detection with a new person. It's ultimately, I call it trustworthy or untrustworthy. That's a value judgment. Ultimately, what it's telling me is yes, have a relationship with this. Yes, this person is someone you should be in relationship with, or no, this person is dangerous. And right, like that's my rapid pattern recognition, interpreting the many subtle cues that we're not conscious of and telling me whether this person is going to be safe for me to engage with or not.
yeah.
And so, yeah, sounding like distortions is something we need to talk about soon, um, because yeah, they're super interesting, and they're all things that come from the research. They're things that create somatic responses in us, so they feel like intuition because they are making something happen in our body, and learning to listen to our body and understand what are the somatic signals and are they intuition saying it's time to move or it's time to stop? Or are they distortions telling us you're not safe, your boundaries don't exist, etc. Right? Like the story is different than right. It's telling us a different story and we're responding to something that's maybe not quite accurate. Like those are all things that come up. So yeah, it sounds like it sounds like we know what one of our next episodes is going to be.
I
Distortions
think
right
so.
away, quick.
Yeah.
What's wrong with us? Negativity bias to the front. Um, let's go back to though how intuition and conscience fit together. Okay, so I'm defining conscience in this model as the ability to sense what's possible, the drive to understand what's in the way, right? What are the obstacles to getting to the possibility? And then the not even desire, but the necessity to act once you understand the obstacles and like the necessity to dismantle those obstacles ultimately and so that we can get where we're going. So I'm calling those the those translate into what I'm calling the three drivers of intuition. So the guiding instinct, that like clarity to understand like how a system can serve people. And like that's the last piece, right? Okay, so the ability to sense what's possible, to investigate the obstacles and then the drive to clear those obstacles in service of systems that serve people, right?
Yeah.
That is what conscience-driven leadership is, and I think a conscience-driven leader has meets all those criteria. So if you are listening and that sounds like you, congratulations. Now you know what kind of leader you are. You're a conscience-driven leader because you are motivated not by ambition or ego to get leadership positions because of status. You are motivated to climb the mountain, not the ladder, and in service of building something that serves people so they can do their best work.
Think that's really intentional language because I'm hearing you say, build systems for people in service of people, which is a little bit different with the nuance than saying dismantling systems that don't serve people. Because sometimes those systems that don't serve people are the barriers. And I do think that at times we need to do that for sure. But systems are how we're going to operate and communicate and get things done. And with this leader of being able to see what's possible,
Mhm.
it's recognizing that there can be systems that are built better for people.
Mhm.
It's not just about the dismantling, it's about the rebuild. And
Yeah,
I
and yeah, I think it's more about building the system that serves people
Mhm.
bypasses the system that doesn't serve people. Like, I don't even think you need to necessarily there are pieces of a system that doesn't serve people that you may dismantle if you're
Mhm.
in a position of enough authority to do it, but you're not
Yeah,
gonna take it apart, you're gonna just rebuild it, right? Like, you're gonna a reward system being a great example, right? You come into an organization, you're a leader, and there's something that you wanna accomplish, there's a behavior you wanna see from people, you want more collaboration. One of the most important things to do that people forget to do is look at how do people get bonuses, how do people get raises. If people get bonuses and raises for individual contribution, that is what they're going to prioritize. So if you want people to be more collaborative, you need to make sure that your promotion system and your bonus system rewards that behavior. Right. So that's
yeah.
modifying a system to serve the culture you're trying to build. And ultimately, content driven leadership is about building culture, and it's not just to serve people, it's to serve people doing their best work, which leads to outcomes, right? So the kind of the opposite of a conscience-driven leader is an outcomes-driven leader, somebody who prioritizes the output and the outcome above the people. And so if people aren't efficient enough and productive enough to meet this target for how much we want to create, then that person is a problem and we need somebody who's a harder worker, right? And we like to look at right, it's more of a consumption model of like the person is the consumable, the outcome is the priority. Whereas in
Mm,
conscience driven leader, the person is the priority because when you prioritize the person, they do better work.
yeah.
And when you prioritize the person, they know you care about them. They care about you as a company a whole lot more. It produces better outcomes, but it gets there slower. So like and that's not a new concept. Drucker talked about it, right? Like, like this is lots of different thought leadership or leadership thinkers have talked about how turnover is expensive and culture is important, but it's harder. It's way harder to build culture. It's slower, it's more expensive. And so it's easily dismissed by the outcome driven leader by saying, like, oh, that's inefficient, or we can't point to how that specifically increases our bottom line.
I'm curious what the research says about the longevity of that, the sustainability of that, though, because if you're focused on outcome after outcome and you're kind of eating people up, I do wonder if that is not as long term successful as building a culture where people feel supported and get the things they need and feel driven themselves to bring out good outcomes and especially able to read the context so that they know what the right outcome is, and that outcome perhaps is less arbitrary.
Mhm. I'd be interested to look into that. I don't know. It seems like the kind of thing that I don't know who would fund that research.
Fair.
Right? So many of the, like, great questions of, like, how do we show this thing that makes you healthier? Well, nobody wants to fund what makes you healthier unless you can patent it, right? Um, there's a book I read in my master's program called The Lenovo Way that's very much about this, I think it creates a more resilient culture, but burn or not burnout, turnover is like the most hidden cost of any organization. Like nobody tracks how expensive it is to replace an employee. How many hours go into training? How much time goes into recruitment, selection, training? Is that person there in a year, right? Like very, very few companies are tracking those metrics because it's terrifying if you look at how expensive. If you knew how expensive it was to replace an employee, you would invest a whole lot more in keeping the good ones and making sure that you know what they want and you're giving them what you can of what they want and you're supporting them in being successful because somebody who cares about your company is going to notice when a threat comes up and they're going to alert you to it and they're going to protect. So the whole company becomes more protected because everyone really cares. So yeah, the Lenovo way is a great book that articulates how this worked in a specific company that makes computer monitors.
So, to bring it back around, how do you define conscience?
Conscience, in the context of conscience driven leadership, is the ability to sense what's possible, the impulse to unearth the obstacles that stand in the way of what's possible, and the drive to act once those obstacles become clear in service of systems that serve people.
Awesome. So, I think before diving into conscience driven leadership, CDL, people think conscience is, the little Jiminy cricket. There another word that has a lot of different meanings throughout our society, things like that, but
Mhm.
it's really specific in CDL to something that, you know, a way that someone thinks. So, what does conscience really mean to you personally? How has that shown up?
I think the Jiminy Cricket image is a good one, right? Like conscience is ultimately the little voice inside of us that tells us what we need to do, right? Like I guess
Mm,
you could say it tells you right from wrong, but I don't think it has to be that like binary of a moral judgment, right? Like
mm,
conscience, especially in the context of conscience-driven leadership, CDL, is it's the voice that calls you to the mountain, right? It's the thing that tells you what needs to happen. And conscience-driven leaders, they have that like internal itch that must be scratched, right? Like we don't lead because we have big egos. We lead because we can't stand to see people lead badly. And there's lots of ways to lead that are good, but there's lots of ways to lead that are bad. And I think conscience-driven leaders wind up taking on more and more responsibility because we see what's possible. We see what's standing in the way of what's possible, and we can't not act to make it better, right? That feeling of I can't not do this. It might feel like a bad idea, right? Like an intuition then becomes the engine that is how that moves in our body. It's the thing that says go. I don't care if it's a good idea. I don't care what people say. I don't care what the story is. Intuition says it's time to move. Now is the time to move. You know what needs to be done. Go do it. I don't care if on paper it's a terrible idea. And usually, when you talk to people who are leaders with conscience or conscience driven leaders, they will tell you, they're like, oh, yeah, there's this moment. I know this moment where I made a choice that seemed insane.
mhm,
And if I hadn't made that insane choice that no one understood and no one agreed with, I wouldn't be where I am today. And thank God I did it
mm.
because where I am is where I need to be. And it's important. And the work I've done to get here is important. And so conscience shows us what's possible and it shows us yeah, it shows us what's possible and how to get there. And intuition tells us when it's time to go and when it's time to stop in order to do that effectively and safely.
It's beautiful. And I'm reflecting back to when you were talking about how a lot of this comes from experiences in adolescence and the way that people have processed danger or
Mhm.
difficult situations, complexity in their lives. And from what I'm hearing about this, it seems like conscience and intuition is also about knowing when the danger is worth it, like what danger is worth it to get where we need to go.
I think so, but I also it because it's intuitive, it's not something you can necessarily explain. Conscience and intuition, they go together because conscience tells you what must be done. And because it must be done, you can trust your intuition when it says it's time to do it. And learning to trust that our intuition is correct is one of the hardest things in leadership. right? Like everyone has intuition. Everyone has developed intuition. Not everybody needs to use their intuition to lead people, right? Like my husband's a great example. Dude has the strongest intuition of anyone I have ever met. When called to lead, he's spectacular at it. Is that his calling in life? God, no. He would like to retire and do lots of Pilates and meditate on the beach. That's his idea of heaven. And so his conscience and his intuition is really focused on his experience of the world and taking care of the people that he loves. And he has more great friends than anybody I've ever met. Whereas mine, I think we have kind of equally powerful intuitions and conscience, but mine is called to help more people and to help teams and to help people in their work specifically. And I think there's a certain kind of person who says leadership is just the part of our life we call work. If that's you, you're a conscience driven leader, right?
Mm.
Like because work is about identity and it's about who we are, and being great at it matters, and we know that being great at it matters, and so we're willing to take on more responsibility if it helps other people get to experience that too.
Beautiful.
All righty. Well, that's a high note to end on, I think.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
ready for our next conversation. So I want to thank you, Julie, for being my wonderful co-host. I also want to thank our amazing producer, Anna Miller, who is not me. Her name has no H's in it at all, but is very similar to mine, Anna Miller. And everybody who's helping bring this idea of leadership to life, right? So thank you for listening. If you've got ideas or thoughts or this sparked memories for you, or insights, please email us at podcast@conscience-driven-leadership.com. Visit conscience-driven-leadership.com for more information, and we hope you'll join us again soon.
Thank you all. I'm Julie Euber.
I'm Hannah Miller.
See you next time.
See you next time. Bye.